The alien queen allowed me to leave, until her child ran after me, calling my name. Zane had never seen a world quite like this one. His boots sank into the damp ground of the alien jungle with each step, his breath coming out in short bursts. His mission had gone wrong from the start, but now, stranded on an unknown planet, all he could think of was finding a way back home. The thick, humid air hung heavy around him as he pushed through the dense underbrush, the sounds of strange creatures echoing in the distance. For days, he had been navigating the wilds of the alien planet, using his survival training to stay alive. But now, with the sun hanging low in the sky, he realized he had wandered farther from his ship than he intended. The faint hum of his damaged communicator buzzed in his ear, reminding him that no rescue was coming anytime soon. His only hope was to find civilization, or at the very least, a way off this strange, hostile world. It was then that he saw it, a clearing in the trees up ahead. Through the thick foliage, the glint of something metallic caught his eye. With renewed determination, Zane moved toward it, hoping it might be a sign of life. But when he stepped into the clearing, his heart sank. There, in the center of the clearing, stood a massive structure. It looked like nothing he had ever seen before, a combination of organic shapes and metallic forms, as if the very planet itself had grown this place out of the earth. The walls pulsed with a faint light, almost as if the building were alive. He could hear strange whispers coming from within, and the air felt thick with an energy he couldn't understand. Zane hesitated. The hairs on the back of his neck stood up, and instinct told him to turn back. But his curiosity got the better of him. He had come this far. Maybe this was the break he needed. He cautiously approached the structure, moving slowly, careful not to make any noise. As he neared the entrance, a faint humming sound filled the air, growing louder with each step. The door, if that's what it was, seemed to open on its own, as if sensing his presence. With no other choice, Zane stepped inside. The interior was nothing like he expected. The walls were covered in strange symbols, and the floor was a soft, metallic surface that seemed to pulse beneath his feet. It was eerily quiet, except for the low hum that resonated through the room. Zane's eyes scanned the shadows, but he saw no sign of movement. Suddenly, a sharp click echoed in the stillness. Zane froze. He wasn't alone. He turned quickly, his hand instinctively reaching for the sidearm at his waist. His fingers brushed against the cold metal, but before he could draw it, a low voice came from behind him. "Stay where you are," the voice commanded, smooth and calm. Zane's heart skipped a beat. He slowly turned around, his eyes widening in disbelief. Standing before him was a creature unlike any he had ever seen. It was towering, easily twice his height, with skin that shimmered in the dim light. Its features were both alien and regal, with sharp, angular lines that made it appear otherworldly. Its eyes glowed faintly, a deep purple that seemed to pierce through him. The creature wore intricate robes, shimmering in patterns that seemed to change as it moved. For a moment, Zane was paralyzed, his mind racing to make sense of what he was seeing. Was this some kind of alien royalty? A leader of some sort? The creature spoke again, this time in a voice that carried authority. "You are far from your people, human." Zane swallowed hard, trying to steady his breath. I'm just an explorer. My ship crashed here. I didn't mean to intrude." The creature's gaze never wavered, studying him with a mix of curiosity and something else, something deeper. "You have no idea where you are, do you?" "I'm on an alien world," Zane replied, his voice steady despite the fear creeping into his chest. "I'm lost." The creature tilted its head slightly. "This is my domain, the planet of the Athelians, and you human are not meant to be here." Zane's heart raced. He had read about alien species in his training, but none had been anything like this. The Athelians, if that was what this creature was, were a mystery. His training had taught him that some alien species would view humans as a threat, while others would be curious. But this being seemed to be something more. Its presence alone was enough to send a chill down his spine. "I'm not a threat," Zane said quickly. "I just want to get back home. Please, I need help." The alien's expression softened, though its eyes remained fixed on him. "You speak as if you are in control of your fate." "You are not. This is my world, human. I decide whether you live or die." Zane's throat tightened. He had known this could go wrong, but he had hoped for more cooperation. "Please," he said again, his voice pleading. "I don't want any trouble. I just need to survive. I'll leave." "I promise, just let me go." The creature regarded him for a long moment, its eyes flickering with something unreadable. Then, to Zane's surprise, it nodded. "You may go, for now." Zane blinked, not quite believing what he was hearing. "You're letting me go. I will allow you to leave, but do not mistake my generosity for weakness. If you venture too far into my territory, you will not be so fortunate." Zane's mind raced as he tried to comprehend the situation. The creature was powerful, that much was clear. But for reasons he couldn't understand, it was letting him go. Maybe it saw something in him, something worth saving, or maybe it just didn't see him as a threat. Either way, Zane wasn't about to question his luck. "Thank you," he said, his voice sincere. "I'll leave right away." Without another word, the creature turned and began to walk away, its steps silent against the metal floor. Zane watched it go, still in shock. He had narrowly avoided death, but now he had to find his way back to the ship. He turned to leave, but as he did, something caught his attention. A soft sound, almost like footsteps, followed him. Zane's heart skipped a beat. He stopped, his eyes scanning the shadows around him. For a moment, he thought it was just his nerves playing tricks on him. But then he heard it again, a soft, almost childlike voice calling his name. "Zane!" His blood ran cold. Zane spun around, searching the room for any sign of movement. His eyes landed on a small figure in the shadows, barely visible against the dark walls. The figure was unlike anything he had seen before. It was smaller, much smaller than the creature that had spoken to him, but there was something familiar about it. Its eyes, though large and wide, held a strange, almost human quality, and it was staring directly at him. "Zane," it whispered again, this time more urgently. Zane felt a strange pull, a connection that he couldn't explain. The creature, no, the child, stood there watching him with those glowing eyes, its hand outstretched toward him. He took a hesitant step forward. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The child didn't answer. Instead, it continued to stare at him, its gaze unwavering. And then, without warning, it took a step forward, its small feet making no sound on the floor. "Zane," it called once more, its voice both haunting and soothing. Zane didn't know what to do. He had just been given the chance to leave, to escape this strange world and its even stranger inhabitants. But now this child, this alien child, was calling to him, pulling him in. There was something in its gaze, something ancient and full of meaning, that made Zane feel as though he was caught in its grip. Before he could react, the child took another step, and then another until it was standing directly in front of him, its glowing eyes locked on his. "Come with me," the child whispered, its voice carrying a weight Zane couldn't understand. "You cannot leave, not yet." Zane's heart skipped a beat. He had been given a chance to escape, but now it seemed that chance was slipping away. Zane stood frozen, unsure of what to do. The alien child's presence was like a weight pressing down on his chest. The way it stared at him, intensely, almost pleading, made Zane feel a strange sense of responsibility he couldn't quite explain. He had just been given the chance to leave, yet something about the child's gaze kept him rooted to the spot. He could hear the faint hum of the alien structure around him, as if the walls themselves were waiting for him to make a decision. The child took another step forward, its small hand reaching out, and Zane instinctively took a step back. The motion seemed to startle the creature, its eyes widening slightly, but then it simply stood still again, watching him. "You cannot leave," the child said again, its voice soft but firm, as though it knew Zane had been planning to escape. "Not until you understand." Zane swallowed, the words sinking deep into his mind. He had thought the alien queen's words were the final command. She had let him go, but now, standing in front of this strange, small being, he wasn't so sure. "Understand what?" Zane asked, his voice quiet, almost questioning himself. "What do you mean?" The child didn't answer immediately. It tilted its head, as though considering how to explain something far too complex for words. Finally, it spoke again, its voice sounding almost like it was reaching out to Zane, beyond words, to his very thoughts. "You are different," the child said, the words settling in Zane's mind like heavy stones. "The Queen. She allowed you to leave because she sees something in you. She chose you, human, because you are not like the others. You are special." Zane's heart raced. He had heard stories of other species, of their powers, of strange and ancient rulers with visions of the future. But this was beyond anything he had prepared for. He had just wanted to survive and leave this strange planet. Now it seemed the planet's rulers had plans for him, plans he didn't understand. "I don't want to be involved in any of this," Zane said, shaking his head, though doubt started creeping into his words. "I just want to go home." The child's gaze softened, but its resolve remained. "The Queen does not give such an order lightly," it said. You must come with me, you have no choice. There is a reason you are here. Zane could feel his pulse quickening. The air around him seemed to grow thicker, the walls of the building almost closing in, as if pushing him toward some unknown destiny. He didn't know what to make of the child's words. Was this some kind of trap? Were they leading him deeper into danger? Before he could answer, the child turned, its movements swift and smooth, and it began walking away, glancing over its shoulder to ensure Zane was following. Without thinking, Zane found himself following the child, his feet moving of their own accord. They walked down a series of twisting corridors, the walls pulsing with that strange, organic glow that seemed to emanate from the very bones of the structure. Zane couldn't help but marvel at how alive everything seemed. The architecture wasn't built, it grew. The floors undulated softly beneath his boots, as though they were part of a living organism. The air smelled faintly of something sweet, like fruit, yet there was an undercurrent of something more, something deeper that Zane couldn't quite place. The child led him down winding paths, through doors that opened as though they were alive. Zane had no idea where they were going, but he couldn't shake the feeling that this was exactly where he needed to be. There was something about the child's calm confidence, its unspoken understanding of the world around them, that made him feel he was being drawn into something greater. They finally arrived at a large chamber, where the walls stretched up to an impossibly high ceiling. The space was bathed in a soft blue light, and at the center of the room stood a massive, glowing crystal. The light from the crystal bathed the entire chamber in a serene, otherworldly glow. It was a place of power, Zane realized, a place where decisions were made, where destinies were sealed. The child stopped in front of the crystal and turned to face Zane. It reached up, placing a small hand against the glowing surface of the crystal. There was a sudden hum, deep and vibrating, that seemed to shake the very air around them. Zane instinctively stepped back, unsure of what was happening. "You are here for a reason," the child said again, this time with more force. "The Queen has seen something in you, human. Something no one else has." Zane opened his mouth to protest, to explain that he wasn't the hero of any prophecy or some ancient legend. But the child continued, speaking over him, as though it was speaking to something beyond the physical world. "She saw it in you the moment you arrived," the child said, its voice rising in intensity. "You are the key to the future, not just of our world, but of all worlds." Zane blinked, unable to comprehend what he was hearing. He wasn't a key to anything. He was just an explorer stranded far from home. But the child's words seemed to echo in his mind, repeating over and over, "the key to the future." "What are you talking about?" Zane asked, his voice cracking slightly. "I'm just a human. I don't know anything about your people. I don't know anything about your future." The child didn't answer immediately. Instead, it stepped away from the crystal and motioned for Zane to come closer. Despite his hesitation, Zane couldn't ignore the pull, the strange sense of urgency that made him move toward the crystal. When he reached the child, the air around them seemed to vibrate. The child placed its hand on Zane's chest, right over his heart. Zane gasped, the warmth of the child's touch surprising him. For a moment, everything went still. The hum of the crystal grew louder, filling his entire being. Zane's head spun as visions flashed before his eyes, images of a dying world, a world full of alien creatures of the Queen. He saw flashes of destruction, of war, of endless chaos. And through it all, he saw a single figure standing tall in the midst of it. Him, he saw himself. He was standing at the center of the chaos, leading the charge, uniting the aliens in a way no one had thought possible. He was the catalyst for peace, or for destruction. The vision faded as quickly as it had come, leaving Zane standing breathless, his heart pounding in his chest. The child withdrew its hand, looking at him with solemn eyes. "You see," the child said, its voice softer now, "you are the one who will change everything." Zane struggled to catch his breath, his mind racing. This couldn't be real. He was just a man, a human stranded on an alien planet. How could he be the one to save anyone? "I don't understand," Zane said, his voice shaking. "I'm not the one you need, I'm not." The child's gaze hardened, its small face suddenly full of determination. "You are, you just don't know it yet." Before Zane could respond, a sudden noise broke the silence. It was a low, rumbling growl, and it was coming from the shadows of the room. Someone was approaching. Zane tensed, his hand instinctively reaching for his weapon, but the child stepped in front of him, raising one small hand. "Do not fear," the child said. "It is not an enemy, not yet." Zane was about to ask what it meant when a tall figure emerged from the shadows, stepping into the light. It was a creature like no other. Its skin shimmered like metal, its eyes glowing with an unnatural light. The being wore dark, flowing robes, and its presence filled the room with an overwhelming sense of power. Zane's heart skipped a beat. This was no ordinary alien. This was something far more terrifying. The child stood firm, its gaze locked on the newcomer. "The Queen has spoken," the figure said in a deep, resonating voice. "And I am here to make sure you understand the path you must take." Zane's legs shook, but he held his ground, determined not to show fear. This was far from over. Whatever was happening, whatever force was at play here, he had to find a way out. Zane stood frozen, his heart pounding as the figure in front of him took a step forward. The creature was taller than any human, its shimmering metallic skin gleaming in the low light of the chamber. Its eyes glowed with a faint, unsettling purple light, and its presence seemed to fill the room, pressing down on Zane with an almost physical weight. The child beside Zane remained still, its eyes locked on the new arrival. There was no fear in the child's gaze, only a quiet, knowing certainty. Zane, on the other hand, couldn't shake the feeling that he was standing on the edge of something far beyond his control. The tall figure spoke again, its voice deep and resonant, echoing in the chamber. "The Queen has spoken," it said, its tone commanding, "and I am here to ensure that you understand the path you must take, human." Zane swallowed hard, his mouth dry. He had been through a lot in the past few days, more than any of his training had prepared him for. But this was something else entirely. He had thought the alien queen was his only obstacle, but this figure, it felt like something much darker, much more powerful. "I don't understand," Zane said, his voice barely a whisper. "What path? What do you want from me?" The creature didn't answer right away. It studied him, its glowing eyes scanning him as though it were trying to understand him just as much as he was trying to understand it. Zane could feel the weight of its gaze, and it made him feel small, insignificant, like a bug under the microscope of a giant. "The Queen has foreseen your arrival," the figure said finally. "She has seen what you will become, what you are meant to do. You are the catalyst, the one who will decide the fate of our species." Zane's mind raced. He had never asked for any of this. He was just an explorer, a man who had crash-landed on an alien world and wanted nothing more than to survive and return home. He hadn't signed up for prophecies or destinies. "I'm not a leader," Zane said, his voice shaky. "I'm just trying to survive." The figure's eyes flickered, a brief flash of something that could almost be called amusement. "Survival is not enough, human. Not for you, not for us. The Queen's people have seen countless cycles of destruction. Our world is dying, and without you, we will fade into the darkness of forgotten history." Zane took a step back, trying to distance himself from the weight of those words. He didn't know what to believe. Everything had been a blur since his ship crashed here. First the Queen, then the child, and now this. This being who spoke of fate, of destiny. It was all too much. "But I'm not one of you," Zane said, his voice growing more desperate. "I don't know how to fix your world. I'm just a human. I don't even know what I'm supposed to do." The figure's gaze softened, though the intensity didn't leave its eyes. "You will learn. You have already begun. The first step is understanding. The second is embracing what you are meant to become." Zane clenched his fists at his sides. He didn't want this. He didn't want any part of whatever plan the Queen or this being had for him. But deep down, something told him that no matter how much he tried to resist, there was no going back. The child had said it before, he was the key. He didn't understand how, but the more he thought about it, the more it seemed like this entire planet, its people, its fate, all depended on him. And maybe, just maybe, it wasn't a mistake that he had crashed here. He looked to the child, seeking some kind of reassurance, but the alien was silent, its gaze fixed on the figure. The child seemed to know what was coming, what Zane was about to face. He wished for just a moment that he could turn back and walk out of this strange world and never look back. But he knew that wasn't an option. Whatever was happening, it was bigger than him. "You will come with me," the figure said, breaking Zane's thoughts. "There is much for you to learn. The Queen's vision has already begun. It cannot be stopped." Zane's mind raced. "Learn what?" he asked, his voice strained. "What do you want me to do?" The figure didn't answer immediately. It took a step closer, its presence overwhelming, filling Zane's senses. "You will be trained," it said at last. "Trained to understand the true power of this world, the power that you must harness to save it." Zane felt a chill run through him at the mention of power. He had no interest in wielding power, no desire to be the leader of an alien species. But as much as he wanted to refuse, to walk away from it all, the truth was that he was caught. There was no escaping this. The queen, the child, and this creature had all made it clear. He was already a part of something far larger than himself. The child moved forward then, walking with an almost eerie grace. It placed a hand on Zane's arm, and for a moment, Zane felt the familiar weight of its gaze, the same pull he had felt before. The child's eyes locked with his, and Zane could feel the communication between them, even without words. It wasn't just looking at him. It was searching him, pulling something from deep within him. "You must come," the child said again, its voice softer this time, almost as if it was speaking directly into his mind. "You have no choice, but you will not be alone. I will guide you." Zane took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. He didn't know what was happening, but it seemed he had no other choice. The child was right. He was already a part of this world, this strange, alien destiny. He had no idea what kind of training he would go through, or what kind of power he would be expected to wield, but he knew one thing: he couldn't run from this anymore. "All right," Zane said, his voice filled with a mixture of resignation and something else, something that for the first time felt like acceptance. "I'll go with you." The figure nodded, its glowing eyes narrowing slightly in what might have been approval. "Good. You will be tested, but first we must prepare you." The child stepped aside, allowing Zane to pass. With a deep breath, he followed the figure into the darkness beyond the crystal. As they moved deeper into the building, Zane couldn't shake the feeling that everything was closing in on him, that the weight of this unknown future was pressing down on him with every step he took. They passed through a series of narrow halls, each one darker than the last, the air growing heavier with each step. Zane's mind kept racing, trying to make sense of it all. The queen's vision, the child's cryptic words, and now this. Strange being that seemed to know everything about him, it was all too much. Finally, they reached a large, open chamber. The walls were lined with strange symbols, glowing faintly in the darkness, and at the center of the room was another crystal, even larger than the one Zane had seen earlier. It pulsed with a soft, rhythmic glow, casting long shadows across the floor. The figure stopped in front of the crystal, turning to face Zane. "This is where your training begins," it said. "You must learn to harness the power within this crystal. The Queen believes it is the key to our salvation." Zane felt a shiver run down his spine. "The crystal?" he asked, his voice hoarse. "What does it do?" The figure's eyes glowed brighter, a faint smile crossing its face. "It does not simply do anything. It is a conduit, a bridge between worlds. The power of the crystal can be used to shape the future, to alter the course of destiny. But you must learn how to control it, or it will control you." Zane stared at the crystal, its surface shimmering with a strange energy. He had no idea how to control something like that. But as he stood there, the weight of his decision pressing down on him, he realized something. He was no longer just a man. He was part of something much bigger. And whether he wanted to or not, he was going to have to embrace the power that awaited him or risk losing everything. "You are ready," the figure said, breaking Zane's thoughts. "Your training begins now." With that, Zane stepped forward into the unknown. Zane could feel the weight of the moment pressing on him. His heart was still racing from everything that had happened. The figure, the tall alien that had first spoken to him, stood motionless in front of the massive crystal, waiting for him to approach. Zane knew this was the moment. There was no turning back now. He had already committed to something he didn't fully understand, but the path was laid out before him, and he couldn't escape it. He took a slow step forward, his feet dragging slightly on the smooth surface of the floor. The chamber around him was silent, save for the soft hum of the crystal's glow. The air seemed charged with energy, and Zane felt it in the pit of his stomach. He wasn't just about to learn something. He was about to change, to transform in ways he couldn't even begin to imagine. The figure's voice broke the silence. "You must understand what you are about to do. The crystal will test you. It will show you things you aren't ready to see, things you might not want to face, but you must go through it. Only then will you be ready for the power the Queen expects you to wield." Zane took another step, his eyes fixed on the crystal. It was like a living thing, its surface pulsing with a soft, rhythmic glow, almost like it was breathing. He could feel its presence pulling at him, beckoning him to come closer. "What is this crystal?" Zane asked, his voice steady but filled with uncertainty. "What does it do?" The figure didn't answer immediately. It simply watched him, its glowing eyes fixed on Zane as if it was waiting for him to make the next move. Finally, it spoke, its voice low and full of weight. "This crystal is a key," it said. "It is the heart of this world, and it holds the power that has kept the Athelians alive for eons. It can shape reality, bend the very fabric of time and space. But its power is not easily controlled. That is why you must be trained. That is why you must understand it." Zane didn't know whether to feel awe or terror. He had never signed up for anything like this. He had simply crash-landed here, looking for a way home. But now, it seemed that his fate had been sealed the moment he set foot on this alien planet. There was no escape from the destiny that awaited him. He took a deep breath and walked closer to the crystal. As his hand reached out to touch it, a jolt of energy ran through his body, causing his muscles to tense and his mind to spin. The crystal's glow grew brighter, and Zane felt his body responding to it as though it were calling to him. The figure behind him spoke again. "You must focus. The crystal will show you visions. It will reveal your true potential. But remember this, what you see is not always what you want. There is power here, but there is also danger. If you are not careful, you could lose yourself to it." Zane's hand hovered just above the surface of the crystal. He hesitated for a moment, unsure if he was truly ready for whatever was coming. But then, remembering the words of the child, the one who had guided him this far, he took the final step and placed his hand on the glowing surface. Instantly, the world around him seemed to dissolve. He was no longer standing in the chamber, no longer in the presence of the strange figure or the crystal. Instead, he was somewhere else, somewhere far away. He found himself standing in a vast, desolate landscape. The sky above was dark, filled with swirling clouds of red and black. The ground beneath his feet was cracked and broken, as if the world itself was dying. In the distance, he saw towering structures, remnants of a once great civilization, now crumbling to dust. Zane's breath caught in his throat as he took in the sight. He could feel the weight of the destruction around him, the sense of loss that hung in the air. It was as if this place had been abandoned for centuries, and yet there was something familiar about it. Something that made Zane's pulse quicken. As he stood there, taking in the desolation, a figure appeared before him. It was a woman, tall and regal, with the same glowing eyes as the queen. Her face was calm, but there was a sadness in her gaze that made Zane's heart ache. "You see it now," the woman said, her voice echoing in the empty landscape. "This is the future of the Athelians. This is what awaits us if you fail." Zane opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. He could only stare at the woman, feeling the weight of her words settle on him like a heavy cloak. "The queen saw this vision long ago," the woman continued. "She saw the destruction, the end of our civilization, but she also saw you. She saw a human who could change the course of our history, a human who could save us." Zane shook his head, unable to comprehend what he was hearing. "I'm not the one who can save you," he said, his voice trembling. "I'm just a man. I don't know anything about your world. I don't know how to save anyone." The woman stepped closer, her expression softening. "You do not yet understand your role, but you will. The power you seek is not just in the crystal. It is within you. You are connected to this world in ways that even you do not know. You were meant to come here, meant to find us. And now you must decide. Will you accept your destiny, or will you let us fade into oblivion?" The ground beneath Zane's feet seemed to tremble, and the sky above darkened even further. He could feel the weight of the world pressing down on him, suffocating him with the responsibility that had been thrust upon him. This was not what he had imagined. He had just wanted to survive, to get home. But now it seemed the fate of an entire species rested on his shoulders. The vision shifted then, and Zane found himself standing in a different place. This time it was a lush, green forest filled with vibrant plants and strange, alien creatures. The air was thick with life, and the ground beneath him felt soft and warm. He saw the child from earlier standing in the distance, its glowing eyes fixed on him. "You see," the child's voice echoed in his mind, "this is the future we could have if you choose the right path. If you choose to fight." Zane walked toward the child, his mind spinning with the weight of the decision that lay before him. He had been given a glimpse of both futures, one of destruction and one of hope. He could feel the power of the crystal, the power that flowed through his veins, and he knew that whatever path he chose, it would change everything. "Do you see it now?" the child asked, its voice soft yet full of power. "You are not just a man, you are the bridge. The link between our people and your own." Zane's head was spinning, He had never wanted this. He never asked to be the savior of an alien species. But standing there in that alien world, surrounded by visions of both destruction and hope, he realized that he had no choice. The future of the Athelians of this world of everything rested in his hands. He took a deep breath, and with a sense of finality, he made his choice. "I will fight," he said, his voice steady despite the storm of emotions raging inside him. "I will do whatever it takes to save your people." The vision around him began to shift again, the world around him warping and bending. He felt himself being pulled back to the crystal, back to reality. As the world around him returned to the chamber, Zane felt a surge of energy, a newfound power coursing through him. It was like something deep within him had awakened, something he hadn't known was there before. He opened his eyes, and the figure was standing before him once again, its glowing eyes studying him closely. "Are you ready?" the figure asked. Zane nodded, feeling the weight of the decision he had made. He wasn't sure what lay ahead, but he knew one thing for sure: there was no turning back now. "I'm ready," he said, his voice filled with determination. The figure nodded once, its face unreadable. "Then let the training begin." And with that, Zane stepped into the unknown, ready to face whatever the future had in store for him. Zane had never felt so conflicted in his life. Every step he took in the following days felt heavier than the last. The weight of the decision he had made, the path he had chosen, seemed to grow with every moment. But there was no turning back. He had promised to fight for the Athelians, to change the future of their world. Now, standing in the center of their most sacred temple, Zane was ready to face the consequences of that decision. The figure, who had guided him since the beginning, was now beside him, its glowing eyes watching him with an intensity Zane couldn't shake. The child, once so small and distant, now stood beside them, its form taller, more solid, but still holding the same serene expression. Both of them were waiting for Zane, silently urging him to take the next step. Zane took a deep breath. He had been trained in the ways of this world, its history, its struggles, its power, but none of that had prepared him for the reality of what was to come. The training had been grueling, pushing his mind and body to the limit. The crystal had shown him more visions, glimpses of past wars, of Athelians fighting, dying, losing hope. And through it all, Zane had felt the weight of their history pressing down on him. The future of their species, their planet, rested in his hands. He clenched his fists, trying to steady his racing thoughts. The Queen's voice echoed in his mind, a constant reminder of what was at stake. She had trusted him. She had seen something in him, something he still didn't fully understand. He was her chosen one. He was the one who could save them. But as he stood there, surrounded by the quiet hum of the alien temple, a part of him couldn't help but wonder if he was ready for the responsibility. What if he failed? What if the power that had been unlocked within him was too much to control? The child beside him stepped forward, its eyes locked on Zane with an understanding that seemed to go beyond words. "You are not alone," it said softly. "You will never be alone. The power within you is not just yours. It belongs to this world, to all of us. It is the key to our future, and you must wield it wisely." Zane turned to the child, meeting its glowing gaze. "I don't feel ready," he admitted. "I don't know how to carry this weight." The child reached out, placing its small hand on Zane's arm. "You do not have to carry it alone. You only need to trust in yourself and in those who stand with you." For a moment, Zane stood there, his heart pounding in his chest. The child's words were simple, but they felt like a lifeline. He wasn't alone. He never had been. As much as he had tried to push away the weight of this world, the truth was that he had been brought here for a reason. He had been chosen, not just by the Queen, but by the fate of this planet itself. Zane turned to face the crystal once again. Its glow was soft but constant, as though it was watching him, waiting for him to make his move. He could feel the power flowing through him, the energy of the world itself coursing in his veins. He had felt it before during his training, but now it was different. It was stronger, more alive. The figure beside him nodded. "It is time," it said. "You must make your choice. Will you use the power of the crystal to save us, to save this world? Or will you let it destroy you like it has destroyed so many before?" Zane swallowed hard. He wasn't sure what the future held, but he knew one thing: he couldn't let this world fall. He couldn't let the Athelians, these strange, beautiful beings who had trusted him, die. He had to do this for them and for himself. He stepped forward, his hand outstretched toward the crystal. The moment his fingers brushed its surface, a surge of energy shot through him. It was like nothing he had ever felt before, an overwhelming rush of power, of knowledge, of history. Images flashed before his eyes, visions of the Athelians, their rise and fall, their struggles, their triumphs, their defeats. He saw their wars, their cities burning, their people scattered to the winds. He saw their desperation, their longing for hope. And then he saw himself. In one vision, he was leading the charge, standing side by side with the Athelians, uniting them in a way no one had ever thought possible. In another, he saw himself alone, standing in the midst of a broken world, surrounded by the ruins of a civilization that had once been great. The visions were overwhelming, each one more intense than the last. Zane felt his mind stretch as if it was being pulled in every direction at once. The power of the crystal threatened to swallow him whole, to consume him entirely. But then he remembered the child's words. He wasn't alone. He never had been. With a steadying breath, Zane closed his eyes, focusing on the power within him. The crystal pulsed with energy, and Zane could feel it resonating with his own heartbeat. He reached deep inside himself, tapping into the strength he didn't know he had. The visions became clearer, more focused, and for the first time he felt a sense of control. He wasn't just a man, he was a bridge, a link between his world and theirs. The visions shifted again, this time showing him a future where the Athelians flourished. They rebuilt their cities, their societies, their relationships. They were no longer at war with each other. They had found peace, not through destruction, but through unity. And standing at the heart of it all was Zane, not as a ruler, but as a guide, a teacher, a protector. When the visions faded, Zane opened his eyes. He was still standing before the crystal, but something had changed. He felt whole. The power within him was no longer overwhelming. It was a part of him, as natural as his own breath. He could feel the energy of the planet, the life force of every living being flowing through him. He turned to the figure beside him, who was watching him with an unreadable expression. "You are ready," the figure said softly. "You have accepted the power and with it the responsibility. Now you must lead." Zane nodded, his heart steady for the first time since he had arrived on this planet. He wasn't the same man who had crash-landed here. He had changed. He had accepted his role, his destiny. He didn't know what the future held, but he knew one thing: he wasn't alone. He had the Athelians, he had the crystal, and most importantly, he had the strength to change their world. The child stepped forward, its small hand reaching out to him. "Together," it said simply. Zane placed his hand in the child's, a symbol of unity between their worlds. They were no longer separate, no longer strangers. Together they would rebuild, they would grow. The future was no longer uncertain. It was theirs to shape. And with that, Zane stepped into the future, not as a man lost in an alien world, but as a leader, a protector, and a symbol of hope. The journey ahead would be long, but for the first time he was ready. The crystal's glow filled the chamber once more, and as Zane turned toward the child and the figure, he knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, he would face them with the strength of a united world behind him. The future had been changed, and it was only just beginning.